What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be looking at another matchup for the Lions in the 2020 NFL season. And today we're looking at what is possibly the game of the year for the 2020 season, and that is the Detroit Lions against the New Orleans Saints. So let's get it started. What is up, everyone? Welcome into the video. I'm glad you clicked on today's video. Today we have a very good prediction slash preview. Okay, we've done the first 3 weeks, but today we're looking at week number 4 against the New Orleans Saints, which historically has been a great game for the Lions, and this has been something that's been really exciting every year in and year out. This is one of the best matchups of the season. I mean, it really is, and the reason for that is because there are two constants, and that is Drew Brees and Matthew Stafford. And when those great quarterbacks go head to head, it's usually something good. It's usually fun to watch, and I expect the same thing in 2020. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to give you guys a little bit of an update. The Dodcast has dropped, which is our podcast. So if you guys want to check out the podcast episode number 1, the link will be in the description. I will throw it in there. It's also in the community. So I just want to get that out there. Episode number 1. More episodes will be longer. Future episodes will be longer, but for now it's just, kind of a shorter one. But it is our first episode, and we're getting it kicked off over there. Now, let's talk about the Saints. Now, last season the Saints finished 13-3. The Lions were 3-12-1. But the Saints did lose in that first game against the Minnesota Vikings. I think a lot of people would say they got cheated. I think they say that kind of in the playoffs every couple of years. It's really unfortunate. They have terrible luck in the playoffs. But hey, you know what? We've been there. We know how that feels. So yeah, we feel for you, Saints. Anyways, the Saints last season were definitely a really good team, and when you look at the Lions record, you're probably like, okay, this is not going to be competitive, but I'm here to tell you it probably will be. This is probably the game to go to if you don't want to go to a divisional game, because it is at home. It could potentially be a trap game, and no one's going to be out of the playoff race, so it should be a really fun matchup like it is nearly every single time these teams play. I mean, if you look at the history between these two teams, 2017, the last team these two teams faced off, the Lions lost 52-38, which sounds, kind of like, all right, 14 points, yeah, that's not that close, but if you watch that game, man, that game was just incredible. 45-10 was the score. All right, Lions were down by 35 points at one point. I turned off my TV. I remember turning it off, and then I turned it back on, and, Lions came back, and they made a 7-point game. They lost, but that would have been the greatest comeback probably ever. I mean, that's just incredible. 2016, 28-13, the Lions win. 2015, 35-27, the Lions won. 2014, 24-23, the Lions won on a comeback there as well. A Glover Quinn interception, which led to a touchdown. I think it was Kyle Fuller that got the touchdown there. In 2012, which was the wild card game, 45-28, the Saints won. And then in 2011, 31-17, the Saints won. The history between these two teams, Matthew Stafford versus Brees, is so good every single year, and I'm expecting the same thing this season as well. In these videos, we don't focus as much on the Lions as we do the opponents, so keep in mind, we're going to be talking a lot more about the Saints than really the Lions at all, because we pretty much have talked about a lot of the Lions. I mean, I keep you guys updated. That's the whole channel, so why talk about the Lions when I can really focus on who is our opponent? 2019, statistically, we're going to run through the stats first. Even though things have changed, we're still going to run through the stats. They were 9th in offensive total yards, which is, top 10. They were 7th in yards passing, which is really good. They were 16th in rushing yards, something to keep in mind, right? Middle of the pack and an average rushing team last season. They had the 6th most penalties. We only had the 11th most. So, yeah, Saints, we beat you there. They also were 3rd in points per game, 28.6. 28.6. That's pretty incredible. Now, defensively, they were also pretty good as well. They were 11th in total yards allowed, which is, again, really good, nearly top 10. They were 20th, however, in passing yards allowed, so definitely keep an eye out for that one. They were 4th in rush yards allowed, and they were 13th in points per game allowed with 21.3. So they're pretty much winning by a touchdown every game. Okay, that's pretty darn good. Now let's look at some advanced stats. They were the 9th most blitzing team. They blitzed the 9th most out of any team in the NFL, 32.7% of the time, and they got to the quarterback 12.1% of the time. 12.1% was their hurry percentage with 51 sacks. Yeah, this team's kind of scary. So let's, okay, the Saints are going to be a tough matchup for sure. And that's why this game should be really good, because these games are usually high-scoring games. They're very competitive, and that's what's great about them. You don't see a lot of low-scoring games in this. You don't see a lot of low-scoring games between these two teams. Now, let's talk about a few of the major moves they made this offseason. Players that they lost, players that they brought in. We're not going to talk about all of them. If you're a Saints fan, you're watching this, and you're saying, well, we brought in this backup guy. Okay, I have them wrote down and stuff, but, we're not going to talk about all of the players that they brought in, because there's just, a lot of moves, and there's some that probably won't have a huge impact on the game. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But we're going to be talking about the major moves they made this offseason. So let's start off with the players that they brought in. And the major move, the main thing they did was bring back Drew Brees on a 2-year, $50 million deal. That was important. Having Drew Brees back there is obviously the most important thing that they did. Yes, he's 41 years old, but he is still a monster. Drew Brees is an absolute monster, bro. Really is. Drew Brees, that was one of their biggest moves they made. Another big move they made was bringing Malcolm Jenkins from the Philadelphia Eagles, a veteran safety, very good safety, 32 years old. So yes, he's not the youngest anymore, but I love the thought of having a veteran safety, a smart safety in the back end that makes a lot of plays. You know, he may not be the most athletic safety you could find, but those smart safeties really help out defenses. I mean, they were 20th ranked defensively against the pass, which was like the worst stat last season. So you add a guy like Malcolm Jenkins to the back end, that can definitely improve. That's probably going to improve. So he's not going to be the most athletically gifted, but he will help mentor some of those younger guys in Williams, Gardner-Johnson, make those players, you know, a little bit better, and also hold it down at the safety position. He's a really smart player, really good player, so I do like that move. They also brought in Michael Burton, the fullback, who was a former Detroit Lion. That's why I brought that one up. Emmanuel Sanders, the wide receiver, to pair with Michael Thomas to have like a really good number 2, so that's going to be interesting. Yes, he's kind of old, but Emmanuel Sanders is still a pretty solid wide receiver. They also brought back Johnson Batamosi. Obviously, I got to point that out because he was also a former Lion. And some moves that they made to, you know, keep guys in-house. Guys like Marcus Hunt is here. You know, they have David back. They have Honduras Pete. I think Honduras is how you say his name, Honduras Pete. They brought a couple of moves to bring some people back, but those are the main moves they made. Justin Hardy, he's back. Now let's talk about a few players that they lost this offseason. The first player, you know, the main one is Larry Warford. And, you know, the thought was, okay, how are they going to replace that guy? Well, they feel like they did it in the draft. With their first pick in the draft, pick number 24, they brought in Cesar Ruiz. I always said Caesar, but I guess it's Cesar. Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan, who's a versatile interior offensive lineman. Maybe the best interior offensive lineman in this draft class, possibly. I think there's a real case for that. That's probably why he went first. So he can move around and hopefully help out their interior of that offensive line. They also lost Teddy Bridgewater, who's now basically a starting quarterback, looks like. The Keen or is a kind? I think it's Keen Kirkwood, who was a linebacker. Jay Klein, who was a linebacker. They lost Eli Apple, who was a cornerback, and they lost Von Bell, who was their safety. So they lost some pieces, but nothing I think that's, you know, they couldn't fix. And I think they made a lot of good moves this season to replace a lot of things. I think nationally they were given like a B+ grade. It's a pretty good offseason. Looking at their draft, they didn't have tons of picks. Like I said, they brought in Cesar Ruiz. They also brought in Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. I really did like Zach Bond. I really like Zach Bond. I mean, he had like some really little concerns, you know, before the draft. I think it was, you know, with his samples, but aside from that, this dude's a really good player from Wisconsin that can do a lot of different things and help in coverage. They brought in Adam Troutman to give another weapon to that tight end group for Drew Brees. You know, he loves his tight end. Good quarterbacks like their tight ends. Having a guy like that to go with Cook is really good. Troutman, I did like Troutman as well. I feel like he may have had the best combine out of any tight end when I was watching that. So definitely need to point that out. And then they brought in a quarterback in the 7th round. Now, that's what they did this offseason. Those are some of their major moves. And really, they got better. They got better to me, or at least stayed the same. I don't think they got worse. They're a good team. They're a good team. Offensively, they still got Drew Brees. They have Alvin Kamara, who's on the final year of his contract, which is going to be big, so he's going to be balling out. Kamara's been really good. He obviously can catch the ball and run the ball. They have Michael Burton out at the fullback position. Their wide receiver group probably got a little bit better. Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders as the 1 and 2. And you got some solid, you know, 3rd and 4th guys, Daquan Smith and Deontay Harris. Nothing I don't think that's really crazy, but you do have some solid options. At tight end, you have Cook and now Troutman. I mentioned Troutman because I think Troutman's going to be good. So their offense is still great. Their offense is really good. Their offensive line is solid as well, and it looks like they tried to improve that again. And they brought some pieces back, and then again, adding Cesar to that mix is definitely going to help. So offensively, they still have a lot of firepower. They're probably going to score a lot of points. They may even be better than last season. This offense is really good, and the great thing is they had that chemistry. Drew Brees, you got Sean Payton, it's going to work, and they're going to put up points. Look at the defensive side of the ball for the New Orleans Saints. They also have some talent here as well. They have Sheldon Rankins holding down the defensive tackle spot with Malcolm Roach, who they brought in. I think they brought him as an undrafted free agent, so you know that's a solid move as well. At the defensive end position, obviously they have Cameron Jordan, who is like that guy that's kind of like the dude on the defense, at least in the front 7, so definitely keep an eye out for him. Marcus Davenport as well as David, who we talked about. They brought back in Marcus as well. Then you move on to the linebacker group. They have Demario Davis, they have Caden Ellis, they have Carl Granderson, who's out of Wyoming, they have Kiko Alonso, who is a former Dolphin. At the cornerback position, they have Marshawn Lattimore, Janoris Jenkins, Williams, Nichols. They have some really solid corners. At least the first 2 are really solid. And at the safety position, now they have Malcolm Jenkins, Gardner-Johnson, and Marcus Williams. I really like their secondary. I think it got better. Overall, man, they have a solid team. I mean, there's not a lot of weaknesses here. And that's when I talk about, you know, I say, okay, you know, when I look at opponents, this team concerns me more because they can do both. This team doesn't really concern me because I feel like, you know, we can beat them. Maybe they're a one-dimensional type of team. This team is not one-dimensional. They're good at everything. Defensively and offensively, they're pretty darn good at everything. And if they're not good at it, they're at least average. They're not bad at anything. There's nothing that I don't think you're going to expose on this team. So that's the real problem with facing the Saints. And that's why they're consistently good every year. They can do it all. They can run, they can pass D, and they can run D. So they can do whatever you have to do, and they can find a way to win football games. Now, the matchup of this game, according to the NFL, Free Okuda against Michael Thomas. That is like the matchup of the game, according to the NFL, which will be a very, very good matchup because, you're talking about maybe the best wide receiver in the game against the third pick in the draft, possibly the best cornerback in the draft. This should be a very good matchup. And I would say on the other side, there's a great matchup between Kenny Golladay and Marshawn Lattimore. So overall, man, like we talked about in the last video where we talked about them playing the Cardinals, about how it's going to be about the weapons, the wide receivers against the corners, against the safeties, against the running backs, the tight ends. It's going to be up those guys. Again, in this game, that could be the case as well. I mean, these are high-scoring matchups. The Lions offensively, their strength is probably their passing offense, and that's something that, is going to be really exciting to watch. So what we did was go back to the advantages where we talk about Lions pass D against the Saints pass offense, stuff like that. We're going to go through those once again here, so let's get into it. So first off, the Lions passing defense against the Saints passing offense, who has the advantage? Currently, I'm giving the advantage to the New Orleans Saints. Yes, the Lions have a chance to actually have the advantage here and have a really good pass defense, because they do have a lot of talent in the back end. And maybe by week 4, they are figuring it out. And I could definitely see it. But really, the Saints are so good offensively, and now adding Emmanuel Sanders and having Drew Brees back, to me, not a lot of teams are going to have the advantage in the secondary. Now, I don't think the Lions are so far off where they're not going to be able to compete and slow them down. But at the same time, you're not going to shut them down. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to shut them down. So I would say I give the advantage to the Saints, but the Lions could be showing us a lot at that point. Next up, the Lions run defense against the Saints running offense. Now, the rushing offense was pretty darn good last season, and having Alvin Kamara back on his contract year is going to be huge because he's probably going to ball out. And the Lions rushing defense, as every part of their defense last year, was awful. It was awful. Now, they did make some additions. Reggie Ragland should help in the run game. You still have Jared Davis. You have Jelani Tavai. You added Danny Shelton. You added some run stuffers in the front seven. I'm still going to give the advantage to the Saints. I do think they got better here. Maybe you give the advantage. I'm not going to give them the advantage, though. I just think the Saints offensively are really, really... They have so much firepower. They have so many different things they can do, and I'm again going to give the advantage to the Saints. Now, offensively for the Lions, their rushing offense against the Saints rushing defense. The Saints had a good rushing defense last season. They were 4th in rushing defense, and I still see a lot of talent in that front seven. The Lions rushing offense, while it could be better, is very unproven, and because of that reason, I'm going to give the advantage to the Saints. But again, just like the Lions passing defense, there is a chance that the advantage is flipped. However, the Lions passing offense against the Saints passing defense, that is going to go to the Lions. The Saints passing defense was like their worst statistical category, 20th against the pass, and that may be the Lions' strength. Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, Marvin Hall, Quintez Cephas, TJ Hawkinson, Jesse James, DeAndre Swift, Jason Utley. I mean, you can go on and on. The weapons are incredible with Matthew Stafford and hopefully a better offensive line. To me, that advantage easily goes to the Lions. So even though it's 3-1 right now, I definitely got to give the advantage to the Lions, and I think this game is going to be really good. I actually looked at Sports Illustrated, and they had the Lions winning this game 41-35. 41-35. It could be one of those games. They also have them starting 3-1, so maybe I'm not crazy. Now, right now, the Lions are 3-0 in my predictions, and I think that's realistic because if you look back in 2011, they started 5-0 and they finished 10-6. And in this season, I think the Lions do start 3-0. However, I just can't give them that fourth one. I'm going to have to go an L here. It hurts me to say it because I hate predicting losses, but this is literally the only time I can do it. If it's during the season, I won't be predicting losses. But again, I'm trying to be as realistic as possible with these and really make my ultimate predictions. And with a 3-0 start, I don't necessarily see going to 4-0. The Saints are a good team. And while this may be a trap game for the Saints, they may be coming off a loss here to the Packers. This is going to be a huge game for the Saints and for the Lions. But again, it hurts me to say it because it's a home game. But after beating the Cardinals, at some point I see them slipping up, and I see it here in week number 4. The Saints are just so good all around. However, this game could easily be a Lions win. I think this again will be the best game of the year. My prediction is the Saints 34, Lions 31. I think this game is going to be incredible. So I will give the Saints the advantage. I'm going to predict them to win, but this game could easily go the other way. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Who wins this game? Right now, the Lions sit at 3-1, and we're heading into our next week matchup in the next video. So stay tuned for the next one. Also, check out the Dodcast. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.